Welcome to the podcast from Doug Ground Up Productions with hosts Lady Miz and Ray. This is a universal platform, and there is nothing off limits. We talk about it all, and we keep it real. This is a no judgment zone, so come as you are. If you are a professional, entertainer, author, comedian, entrepreneur, or just someone who wants to get something off their chest, well, let your voice be heard here on From the Ground Up Productions. Sponsorship and other opportunities are available from the Ground Up Productions. Turning nothing into something. There's only one way to go from here. And now, here are your hosts, Lady Miz and Ray.
What's up, y'all? Y'all know what it is. This is Lady Miz from the Ground Up Productions, and we are out here in Middletown, New York at Sadie's Books and Beverages. I want y'all to get to know Yaa Yaa, the owner of this bookstore. Get to know her story, and why it's important to have Yaa Yaa in her bookstore here in the community.
Hi, Grand Rising and Blessings. I'm Yaa Yaa Williams here on behalf of Sadie's Books and Beverages here at 37 North Street. We are a family-owned business that is priding ourselves on being more than a bookstore. So come see why. We are your intergenerational, cozy, cultural community hub that's hoping to either rejuvenate, cultivate, or educate you. Thank you.
What's up, Yaa Yaa? Thank you once again for giving us the opportunity to learn about Sadie's
Books and Beverages. Yes, we're more than a bookstore, and so I'm hoping by way of this dope tour that you and the community can learn why we really are an intergenerational hub that wants to rejuvenate, cultivate, and educate.
I love it. So what we're going to do is I want you to give us a tour.
Yes.
Tell us everything and tell the people everything about why this is more than just a bookstore.
Okay.
And then I want to get into your backstory. I want to know about you. I want to know what you got going on and how you even got to this point. What inspired you to do what you're doing here?
All right, well, I'm ready. Thank you for giving me this space to share my story. And it really starts with an ode to my grandmother. So this space is named after my maternal grandmother, Sadie K. Whaley, who is a Jamaican immigrant. She came to this country and had a huge affinity, not just for community, but for family and for service and for giving. And so her love of books and community is actually what inspired the creation of this space. And when you asked about the vision for how this space came about, it really was birthed out of a very tumultuous time professionally and personally, which we'll talk about later.
Okay.
But it's very important to how this space was set up because everything in here has an intention and a purpose. And so what you see on the whole left side of the store is a bookstore, right? We have 23 genres. We'll go through a little bit of them to explain the intentionality of the book selection.
Okay.
But also they're each themed. And the theme is set by one of my grandmother's heirlooms or an artifact from her era. For instance, the typewriter. And I love to give this tour not just to people who see this and it becomes nostalgic, but to young people. I have them come up and type a word and misspell it, and then I tell the young person, now delete it. And you should watch them struggle trying to find the delete button, right? It's like, no, back in the day, before laptops, this is how you typed things.
Yes.
And so it not only creates a sense of gratitude and appreciation for technology, but the goal is to inspire young people to be intrigued to go back to their family and ask about what heirlooms do you have? What was it like back in the day when? And so that's another reason why we're more than a bookstore. So we've got her typewriter here to set the stage. And again, across this whole left side of the store are 23 genres.
Okay.
And to appeal to the youth.
Wait. Before we go here,
because
you know,
the phone.
Kids, you gotta
tell them. They don't know about this situation
they
here,
think they just hit the button.
No, ma'am. And they come up to it and they go like this. They try to swipe it, right? No, you had to put your finger in and dial each one. And I remember even hearing a phone like that ring in my grandmother's house, and we weren't allowed to answer the phone, right? So all of those codes and those family dynamics of how you function as a family is another opportunity to spark conversation. So So shout out to finding another artifact hidden here in the
yes.
And you keep me honest. Make sure that I find all of them for the people watching. Yes. So here's where we keep all of our youth and young adult books, right? And so this was the last book my grandmother gave me before she passed. Wow. And one of the last children's films we watched together. And so to appeal to the youth, our genres are named as hashtags. So for the young adult who thinks they're grown, they're hashtag adultish, right?
Oh, okay.
Books for the children are for the youngins, and then we have books for the babies, and then of course hashtag comics. Books by and about not just John Lewis, not just about Tulsa Race Massacre, but comic books that highlight Black superpowers and dopeness. And then of course traditional comic books for sale. Everything from the artwork that we have up is all to inspire, intrigue, and spark either conversation or give you something to pause and just feel safe. Like you're coming here and you're leaving home to come and have an experience in your community that feels like home. And some of the topics, yes, are culturally relevant and appropriate, but the language in the text is developmentally at their level.
I love that. I love it. I love how you got it broken into sections too. You make it easy to find when somebody come in here.
See, so you don't need me to tour you. You already get the vibe, right? You get the vibe, right? And so this next section here, my grandmother was a huge fan again of not just community, but of jazz music, primarily Nina Simone, right?
Okay.
And when I think of Nina Simone and grew up learning about her from elders in my family, she was big on telling her story, raw and unapologetically, right? And so in the spirit of her being a storyteller through her music, this whole genre is about telling stories, right? So memoirs or autobiographies, we have them as hashtag I tell it because they're telling their own story.
Yes.
Hashtag you tell it are the biographies that are written by other people about prominent figures. This is a really rare genre, but we have A to Z for ASD, which stands for the Autism Spectrum Disorder. To share a little personal background, we have a daughter who is on the spectrum.
Okay.
And even though it is a growing diagnosis among communities of color, the reality is that it probably existed, but we just weren't going to get the supports and the resources to know that it existed. So how do we create a more autism acceptance type of community? One way is through literature. So we have children's books and books for adults to help them learn more about the spectrum. And then dispelling the myth about, being a reader means that you are always in a book and you finish a book, right? So we have hashtag flicks, and those are for books that were made into movies. So maybe you saw The Hate U Give, and now you're like, I wonder how it differs from the book. Right. Or maybe Color Purple is coming out with a new version this winter, right? And you want to get ready for the get ready. So maybe you start to read the book so that when you go to see the film, you have a different appreciation. We're an independent bookstore, right? We're not Barnes & Noble or Amazon. And one of the very intentional ways that we design this space is that the books that are here are the ones that are either going out of publication, right? They're either banned, right? But they say banned and we say it's required, right? Love it. Or they're books that, aren't as popular, but are very pertinent texts that the community recommends. So even if you look here, we have an opportunity, unlike most traditional bookstores, for community members to recommend titles that they want to see on the shelves. Because a lot of people have personal connections to books. And, just as we are going around, I just want to point out one more artifact down here. How many young people know what it is and this was strategically put under hashtag flicks, because I like to ask young people, and I'll ask you, do you remember a favorite TV show or movie when you were growing up that you liked to watch on TV?
Well, cartoons.
Yep. Which one?
Okay, so I like Heathcliff.
All right, Heathcliff. Now imagine back in my grandmother's era, instead of watching Heathcliff, you listened to it. Because before there was television, you listened to your favorite show, right?
Right.
And so here is another artifact we have in the store. It takes a while to warm up because it is that old. But it's, again, an opportunity to talk to young people about shortwave radios and how you might have elders in your family that are alive from before TV was even invented. And you had to listen to Finding Nemo or Wakanda Forever, the movie, all through staring at the radio.
That also made us more creative because we had to visualize so much and think of things where a lot of things is thinking for us now. So that muscle is getting weaker. So I like that.
Yes. And so even that's connection to books, which is why I always tell people, if there is a movie that was made into a book, even if you don't finish it, check check it out.
Yes.
Because there's a lot of creative license that's taken, and sometimes the book is better. So we also have browsing baskets. So although all these books are full price, we want to honor the fact that part of being almost like a advocacy community space, not everyone can afford a full price book, but that doesn't mean they shouldn't have access to a really nice new book. So sometimes we even take brand new books and we put them in the browsing basket, and we allow people to just take them in and read them. We do book swaps where if you bring 3 books, you can take any 3 books. And so it's a chance to give equity even in book collecting at home, that you don't have to get a beat up book just because you don't have money to pay full price.
That's beautiful. Definitely giving back to the community. I love that.
Thank you so much. Now we do the part where history, right? So we're in this era, even as a country, where we're trying to block what history gets told. Critical race theory means like you're trying to teach and indoctrinate children. But the reality is that there's a lot of information in books that is telling the truth about our history. And the fear is that we're empowered with knowing the truth. And so we take this section, shout out to the Harlem Renaissance, and one of the history books that my mother gave me by Walter D. Myers, setting the stage for hashtag Stay Woke, which are books about race, right? Hashtag The Tea. These are books that we hope will inspire family read time, right? An opportunity for, let's say, an elder in the family and a youth in the family to read the same book, but at their developmentally appropriate level. So you buy these as a bundle. I want to learn about Trevor Noah's Bone or Crime, and then here's a version I could give to my nephew, my son, who might be in junior high, and we can read the same book, have a conversation without having a text that's above us or below us. And
I didn't even know they had something like that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like, what's going to make Sadie's a little different in terms of a bookstore? Because we don't want to be traditional. And a lot of times, you know, when you give a young person a book that's powerful, the language is over their head. The content might be a little too spicy, but you want them to get the message.
Yes.
And so whenever a book comes out in bundles like that, we pair them up, and that's hashtag The Tea.
Okay, I love it. Okay.
And then we have hashtag Facts. This is where our history books live. The most recent one that is a national bestseller, How the Word is Passed. But this is where we keep the 1619 Project stamped from the beginning. When the Woman King was really popular and people were like, that's a true story. Yes, the Dahomey Amazons, those were real people that were telling the story about how they navigated in their era. Books on Juneteenth. And one of my personal favorites that'll connect when we get to the other side of the store, Driving While Black. Right? We had a community member donate a copy of her green book to the store. And if you're not familiar with the backstory and context of the green book, this book is a great historical memorial of why that experience is so important to know about. Last thing in this era of like hashtag Stay Woke, we want to honor that New York State just made August National Hip Hop Celebration Month.
Yes.
And August 11th is going to be National Hip Hop History Day. And so we decided last week when we heard the news to make a genre called hashtag Hip to the Hop. And so this is where we're housing books that were written by rappers. No co-authors, no filters, no edits. And so we have Kendrick Lamar's Book of Poetry, one of my personal favorites, Sister Soldiers, No Disrespect. We have books by Rakim, Gucci Mane, Jay-Z's Decoded. And again, another opportunity to appeal to the youth, to put some swag on reading. Okay, now you remember this. Come on.
Oh, no.
Come on now.
Listen,
I know you remember this.
I
mean, you can walk with it in the street, but I never got caught
that
doing
was the first boombox,
The first boombox. And shout out to the Spike Lee book, because it always makes me think of Radio Raheem with the boombox, right?
Know.
And I showed this to my children the other day. I was like, listen, you guys have iTunes, but I remember taking a cassette tape, running to the radio because the song was coming on, hitting record on a blank cassette.
Before you hit record, what had to happen?
You had to have it in, and the tape pushed in, and
it
had
those
right
little
spot,
things
the
inside.
little
Those, yes. Or else you got to refill it back up.
I can't. And then don't let the tape pop, or you get to the end of the tape, but the song's still going, then you got to flip the tape. But anyway, young people, this was how we listened to music. Can you imagine walking around with this? Not a nice little swaggerific iPhone. And so again to go wow, and a chance to revel, and a chance to kind of just have some appreciation for where we've come. We have little bits of quotes and affirmations all around about being a voice and not an echo, staying true to yourself.
I love that. So basically, just inspiring throughout the store. You know, just
Yes.
reminding people to think of something positive, loving themselves. I love that.
Yes,
I love it.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, because the truth is, although we're Black owned, we're not Black only, right? So we want everyone to come into this space and be intrigued, sparked, and inspired by something. And so that's why we don't just have books up. We have something to spark your thinking, something to make you go, something to make you smile. And so as we go through this tour, remind me to just show the community like there's all those elements that live in this space.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay.
And it actually makes me realize, if you don't mind doing a little Michael Jackson moonwalk back, this I only found out about through, again, the beauty of this space is that there have been community members, elders that have come in, that have shared local history, because I'm a city folk girl. I'm from the city, right? Preferably Harlem/Brooklyn. And so when I come up here, I always like to learn the history of the area I'm in, and especially for people of color.
Yes.
And she came in and donated pictures to this space.
Wait, who's
because,
she? I'm sorry.
her name is Miss Mavis.
Okay.
She came in. She usually comes in like once a week. Now that we're reopened, we'll see her again.
Okay.
And she gave pictures to Sadie's so that we could memorialize the fact that right here on 211, there is a colored cemetery with markers going back to 1756. And they're unmarked tombstones, but you can see in the picture right here that a marker was placed there to show that this is where some former enslaved Africans were buried, and the markers go back to 1756.
Oh,
and it's
my
right here in the
God.
area. So how many of our young people, or even the history teachers in this district, are teaching about that local history to make the connection to the 1619 project, although that story starts in Virginia, feel very real right here in the Hudson Valley.
Absolutely.
So I placed that here right next to hashtag facts, so that as you're looking at this, that everything is kind of connecting to the flow and the theme of the bookstore. And dispelling that myth that we came up north and had freedom and life was great. No, they were lynching us right here in Port Jervis. Governor Hochul just put a marker in Newburgh to honor a lynching that happened there. And so we were strange fruit all over, right? And yes, coming up north gave a little more advantage, but the racism was still very pervasive.
Right.
So again, it's an opportunity to dispel that myth, because if we just go off our history book, they'll have us believing we migrated north and then we started to live the good life and everything was great. And that's not the reality, right? So it's not to make us bitter, it's just to encourage us and empower us about our resilience and remind us that, you know, sometimes there's fear from people about knowing the truth, but we need to teach our children early what we learned late. And so I love to do this too, is to invite young people to smell the 60s. Oh my gosh, right?
Snap,
Hashtag mothballs. Hashtag your grandmother's plastic covered couch, right? And so for those who don't know, my grandmother was also a huge fan of taking pictures, and this is her original Polaroid. So when our young people walk around with their iPhone and just tap on a camera app, I go, no, put this around your neck and go
let
take,
me feel that.
listen,
Let me feel. Ooh.
and
This
go
is
take
like
pictures
literally-
of an event, right? It's literally,
my
they think it's a dumbbell,
gosh,
right?
look at
and just
that.
like this one too, they think this is a dumbbell or a paperweight, but we know what this is.
Tell them what it is.
It's an iron. You used to put it over actual fire like a hot comb, and you would press with this full metal cast iron like clothes,
gosh.
right?
And that is heavier than this.
It's heavy. And when I give it to young people, they think it's for this.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, you can make it a dumbbell. That's multi-purpose. But your ancestors ironed clothes with it, right?
Yes.
And so this kind of sets the theme for my genres that are hashtag the GOATs. And we all know what the GOATs stand for, the greatest of all times.
Yeah.
Hashtag food for educators. That's a genre for, especially in the Hudson Valley area. A lot of our teachers don't look like our kids. And if they do, they may not have had the lived experience. And so these are books that their teacher education prep program doesn't include, but should include if you're going to teach in such urban environments. And so we offer that as some reading to spark their awareness for culturally responsive teaching.
Can you give us like just
An example?
show one of the books?
Sure.
here?
So here's one that we really love, Culturally Responsive Teaching in the Brain by Zaretta Hammond. What's so great about this book is for the people who believe that teaching in a culturally responsive way is extra. It's not something that's needed. She connects it to the science of the brain and talks about, even if you don't believe in this, here's the science behind why it opens up neurons and pathways for people to take in information. So this is the science approach to staying woke as a teacher. And then one of my personal favorites, I'm going to show them as a trio, are these three. Cultivating Genius by Dr. Guldi Muhammad. talented, and she talks about how every child has genius in them. It's your job as an educator to pull it out.
Yes.
We have Ratchetdemic by Chris Emden. I think you actually came the first time and got one of his books for white folks who teach in the hood.
Yes,
and the rest of y'all too. This is another one of his books, right? Because we always tell young people that when they code switch, they have to leave part of their authentic self to show up in a classroom. So his word Ratchetdemic is the merging of academic and ratchet, and that you can be both in both settings and still be honored, right?
I love that.
So this is a great read. And then this one by Bettina Love, We Want to Do More Than Survive, right? So how abolitionist teaching is the real way to bring equity to urban population. And my background is education. I started as a math teacher in Brooklyn in 2005, and since then became an assistant principal, a director. So I've seen through firsthand experience how the lack of this type of resource for teachers can impact students and their trajectory of just learning themselves and learning about education. And then we have hashtag Rest in Power, which is another unique genre to the store. This honors people who contributed to the culture that died in the past year. So Tina Turner just passed away, Harry Belafonte, Bill Russell, Sidney Poitier. And so if you're looking for something about the current culture and those who've transitioned, we have that right here.
Beautiful. Got everything I'm trying to tell you.
All right, here we go. And listen, we're almost there. We're almost there. And you know, we got to have a diffuser, right? Because one thing about the experience in this store, we want all of your senses to be heightened. You want to smell something, feel something. We got something you could taste. Somebody has a black-owned potato chip that's right here in the store, right? So that you leave here and you get all 5 of your senses like intrigued. And so another chance to do a throwback. I mean, TVs had fatter backs than I don't know what, right? Now they're like thin, flat screens.
Yes.
But I remember having the antenna and having to put the foil on it and having your grandma say, lean, 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 right? To get the reception for a channel.
Yes.
And so we have this VHS player here to kind of set the stage for our second to last bookcase.
Wait. Let's talk about
Amanda Gorman. So Amanda Gorman is also here because one of our genres is called Acts and Verses, about poems and plays. So again, something to just spark you to look at while you're staring at the wall possibly. And you know, for her age and what she did in terms of being an inaugural poet for the actual Obama administration, we just wanted to honor how she was Black girl magic and how she broke a barrier. So we took one of our favorite lines from her poem, The Hill We Climb, and we have it up in the store to kind of talk about inspiring change.
I love that. Now I want to talk about that really quickly before we move on. First and foremost, I just want to thank you for continuing to put this information out to educate all of us, you know, who may not know certain things and need to know. Because again, it's not a threat, it's just education so that we could do better, right? Now, one of the things that I didn't know is that, if this is correct, that they were banning her speech?
Yes, not only her speech, but she also has a book of poetry called Call Us What We Carry, right? And so that's another undertone of this space, which is why as soon as we hear that something's about to be banned, we're putting it on the shelf, right? For instance, Stamped from the Beginning by Ibram Kendi. They're trying to ban all of his texts also. And he's just telling the story of history that's left out the history books. And so that's why we want to be a safe haven for the things that are trying to be blocked and denied access. And yes, Amanda Gorman is one of them. Like, what about her poem makes you fearful that every child should not learn about her and her story? And even when I learned that she grew up with a speech impediment, right? And so public speaking for her was something that she was very shy and introverted about. Now she's a presidential poet. You know what I mean? Like, all of those things speak to the resilience of our people. And so as soon as I hear in the news or read that this author's banned or this is being denied in schools, it's like, oh, we need to stock that on our shelves. And that's another thing that drives our curation of books in this space.
Okay. All right. Thank you for clearing that up.
Yes. And so for this column, when we started the tour, I showed you one of the last books and children's movies that I received from my grandmother. Here's the last book my mother got from my grandmother, which is Sacred Woman by Queen Afua. And this was one of the last films they watched together, Daughters of the Dust, which is playing here on the VHS. And what's so dope about that film, it's an all-black female cast, a black female screenwriter, costume designer, film director. So it really embodies what the theme for this column is, which is like Black woman dopeness and magic. So we have hashtag she, her, hers. Those are books that highlight feminism, like Bell Hooks, All About Love. We have Audre Lorde's Sister Outsider. One of my recent favorites, Black Women Will Save the World by April Ryan, an anthem. And so an opportunity to delve into the world of feminism, if that's your cup of tea. We have hashtag Acts and Verses, which are our poems and plays written by Black and brown authors. And if I could just point out another cool thing that makes our bookstore slightly different. When we were open last month or so, the last time a community member came in, I had August Wilson's Fences right here. Because August Wilson is a prominent playwright. Fences was made into a movie, right? And a community member that came in said, oh no, August Wilson used to be over there with the goats. He's like one of the greatest playwrights. So I said, go ahead and take the book and move it over there. They were like, what? I can't do that in Barnes & Noble. I was like, is this Barnes & Noble's? This is Sadie's, right? So the community can even recommend how we categorize and put books in genres, and so that you're actively a part of helping create the space.
I love that.
Yeah, and even if a book can have multiple genres, sometimes I move it around because we all know that there's a Netflix film right now with Denzel and Viola doing the screenplay, the movie of Fences, right? So books can live in different places, and just like we don't want to be put in a box, nothing about this space is box-like. So things move around and shift and shape and form. We also have vending opportunities. So we're more than a bookstore because we also like to think of ourselves as a community space, right? And so we've been collaborating with a lot of small and home-based businesses so that this is their storefront too. And one of them is Miss Lolly's Handmade. You actually met her last night. Pat Davis, who's here right here on the wall. And she, through her own life story, came up with a natural skincare line. And so we have her vegan items through her lip treatments, her lemongrass soap, her sea moss, her light body butters. And it's just means so much to have a space where you can come and everything can be about supporting a Black natural hair care line, a Black bookmark creator, a Black bookstore, a Black potato chip, a Black author. So that's really the essence of this theme here.
I love it.
And we have little spotlights on the wall that give people an opportunity to scan a QR code and even go and support their website in a better way. And their favorite book. So look at what her favorite book was. What was it?
Oh, Trevor Noah.
Born a Crime, and we have it right there on the shelf, right? So another way for you to have a connection to this businesswoman. And maybe when you see her, you go, oh, I know your favorite book. Or I was in Sadie's and I got one of your body butters. So it's a great way, again, to make connections in our community without all being in the same place.
And you have information about them. So it's like a bio.
A little bio.
Right there. Okay, I love that, and why she believes that Sadie is more than just a bookstore. So
and a direct quote from her about why this space is more than a bookstore to her. So again, some things to spark you. Maybe you just want to sit and take in the environment and you're not even looking at a book. This is a way that you can still be engaged. And so then we have down here, and it's in progress still because we're reopening our doors August 10th. So this is going to live on 2 shelves, but we have our fiction area and our also hashtag raw and uncut. And so our fiction books, that just speaks for itself. It's like your Shallow Waters by Anita Lopez, or your book, The House of Eve, just fictional stories that are popular currently with Black and brown audiences. But raw and uncut is a brand new genre that we're also very hype about. And it's an opportunity for us to highlight not just memoirs, but also fiction books that are urban adult, right? And so there's no filter, there's no edit, and it may not be for young adult, and it might be a little spicier than your traditional fiction, but it's its own genre. And we are so hyped that that genre is being kicked off by Lady Miz with her own memoir. So if you want to check out why or what that genre could even mean, her memoir along with Sister Soldier, The Coldest Winter Ever. We'll have some Zane books and some other books, and that'll be an area for our spice, right? So shout out to bringing spice to Sadie's.
Thank you.
And we even have some VHS down here because, again, it's not about just looking at the things and taking them in. We want to heighten all the senses. So we invite people, especially young people, to come, touch, feel, take out a VHS, practice putting it in. realize, oh wait, I didn't hit eject and the thing might pop, you know? So just chances to, again, experience things that may not be our era, but also give us a chance to have some gratitude about where we are now. And so again, just teaching young people how to be patient with technology, because all those things you had to have a gentle touch, right? And so again, as you sit, you don't necessarily have to engage in a book. You can look at art, you can look at things on the wall. Like I said here, we started this new with our reopening, putting faces to the dope people who have their products in the store so that people can connect to them even though they're not here, either through their product or their favorite book or just checking out what this space means to them. And so we talked about Lollies. We have Brooklyn Craft Factory. She's all the way back in the city. Hashtag the city folk. Yes, we city folk. Hashtag the city folk. And she does our mugs and some of our t-shirts. And again, she was inspired through the pandemic to start her own line. And now she has a business that's up and booming down all the way from the city. And so you'll see spotlight like this spread out throughout the store. And it's a chance, again, to engage with the vendors who are in the space that aren't physically here to sell their own product. And so that actually connects to this, right?
Okay.
So another one of our vendors is Kia Simone Designs. You also met her last night. And her cool story, she was inspired by the passing of her own grandmother to start her own greeting card, bookmark, and keychain line. And she uses some of her grandmother's artifacts to actually make the bookmarks, and the beading comes from her grandmother's collection.
Oh, okay.
And even though she's not even 30 yet, she is an old and beautiful soul that is really trying to inspire youth to get back into handwriting notes, right? Because we do texting and emojis, and we talk and we do ROTFL, right? Instead of just saying what we mean. So through her greeting cards, she's trying to promote, like, there's nothing like getting a letter in the mail and someone wrote it.
Let me tell you something. I love that. Blank cards. I always tell them, don't buy me cards. Write me something. Say something to me. Write a letter. I tell them that all the time because it means so much more. I mean, it doesn't mean that the cards are bad. I'm not like saying anything bad about it, but it's way more personal when you know that that person thought those thoughts and put those words there. It means so much. So
and it's not cookie cutter.
Beautiful.
You know, you got that message, right? So you can come to Sadie's and buy a black-owned blank greeting card. She also has keychains. I mean, my own personal keychain, I'll show you, has this keychain on it so that you can feel a connection to other people and their stories. We have hashtag Mind, Body, Soul. Those are books all about self-care for the mind, the body, and the soul. So books on financial literacy. One of my personal favorites by Nedra Glover Tawahab, Set Boundaries, Find Peace. Things around communication.
What is this about?
So this one is about, you know, people who struggle with saying no and feeling guilty. And the reality is that no is a full sentence, right? But also there's peace that comes with saying no. And you keep yourself from running on E by setting those boundaries. So how do you do it in a way that doesn't alienate you from people you love, but also firmly sets the tone about how you can reclaim your own peace?
Put that aside.
I've read this twice.
Oh, look, put that aside.
And it has a workbook. It has a workbook.
I need a workbook too.
Listen, I go back, and she has another one that's about drama-free, and it's about doing this work specifically with family members. Like if that person robbing you or making you have to protect your peace is your mother, or your little brother or your cousin. So that's, I'm a huge fan of her work.
Okay, I gotta get those.
And so that's a space. We also have something like The Year of Yes by Shonda Rhimes. Now I found out about this book being on my Peloton, and one of the Peloton instructors had a ride series called The Year of Yes. And while you were riding the bike, they were talking about excerpts of this book. And then when I read it, I said, my goodness, like we have to house that on our shelves. And so again, Mind, Body, Soul, those are books about soul, self-care work. We highlight journals here because for some people it's cathartic to write what they're feeling. So we have black-owned journals, black-owned coloring books, black cookbooks. So shout out to Tabitha Brown, who is like a rising star now. She's got a Target line and books and all these things birthing out of her personal passions. But we also like to highlight, again, being non-traditional, things like vegan soul food. Right? That's looking like fried chicken, but that's zucchini, right? How to still preserve the savoriness of our dope cuisine, but also honor that some of it's not so nutritious. So this is actually one of the most popular books in this section, the vegan soul food book. And I've had people come back saying they tried the recipes.
I've done the vegan soul food before too. And it is good. What we used was cauliflower as the chicken.
Oh, see, I haven't tried that.
Yeah,
I did try out of this, Tabitha's air fried certified Mexican corn that uses vegan mayo and her sunshine spice, and it like rivaled one at a carnival. I'm serious.
Really?
So I'll show you that later.
Sure, yes.
But that's another book.
Okay.
And then I have books like this to spark conversation. So
Okay.
who knew Snoop wrote a cookbook, right? Another way to teach people, just like you are a queen of all trades, like just because you play football doesn't mean you can't be an engineer.
Let them know.
Just because you're a doctor doesn't mean you can't like to crochet, right? Just because you're a dancer doesn't mean you can't be a teacher, right? So you're allowed to be more than one thing and still be you. And so who knew Snoop had an affinity for cooking? And here's his cookbook that we also have for sale.
So that message to anybody out there listening, don't listen to people when they say, you're doing too much.
Yes.
Keep doing you,
Keep
boo.
doing. And that you can only do one thing.
Yeah,
you can be dope at many things, and even if you're not great at it, but it brings you joy, then do it.
Yes.
Because truth be told, I don't know anything about owning a bookstore. I didn't go to school to get an MBA, and we'll talk about that later. But this space is literally the epitome of a passion project that feels like a purpose.
It is. You don't always need to go to school for something. When God gives something to you, it's kind of like already in you.
Yeah.
I want to point this out.
Yes.
I want to know about it.
Yes.
And I love the sign.
Remember your roots.
Remember your roots.
Remember
because
your roots.
this whole bookstore is about that.
It's about your roots.
Yes,
and again,
and I love that.
And shout out to my newborn who's in the background.
Yes.
Can I bring him with me for a second?
Please.
Come here, Kai Kai.
Okay, first of all, shout out to you for that, because it takes a lot when you're a mother, when you're a wife,
Yes.
when you're a business owner, and you're doing all of this and doing an excellent job at it. So listen, that is a big, big deal.
And it's encouraging to have you here with your family to see what the future can look like, right? Because having it all, you don't have it all at one time, right? And so allowing me to be raw in this moment and be like, my kid's in the background,
Yes,
right?
and I love it.
All
I
right,
love it.
beautiful.
Yes.
So remember your roots. That's another reason why we want this space to spark it for anyone of any age. What you see up there is that my grandmother and her mother, they opened a restaurant. And what's up there is her meat grinder and her hand mixer.
Can I bring that down?
Yes,
Can I grab
well,
it?
at
No,
your
well,
own
I don't
risk.
know.
It's like 10 pounds or heavier. Yes.
Oh,
Look
okay,
at
it's
it.
not so
And it has the
bad.
handle.
Whoa.
And you used to
Look
put
at
it on the
this.
side, so I'm told, and you put the meat in it and you attach it to the table, and then you would make fresh ground meat, right?
Look at that. Oh my God.
In the
This
spirit of her being philanthropic, she gave away more food than she sold. So the restaurant didn't thrive and have longevity. But that's why it's up there, is to spark conversations about passion. And sometimes your passion project doesn't last long.
Right.
But it does give to the community, which is the ultimate goal. And so it still becomes part of your journey.
Yes, I love that. I think it is very important to know how to give back. Make sure I put this back up there right. Hold on.
Oh, the right way is however you put it back. That way we know that it's meant to be touched. Yes.
I don't know.
Perfect.
Okay.
Beautiful.
But I do want to say this, and not to take away from that, but the community part. It is important to do that, but in order for us to rise up, the community has to understand we have to support each other too.
Yes.
Because otherwise, then we'll just keep needing other people to survive. You
and that's why
understand?
this space is also an opportunity for economic growth, right?
Yes.
Because a lot of times we want the black hookup, right? Or we want the discount. But if we're really going to thrive, it's about paying each other at the value of what our service is so that we can thrive, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And so that's one of the undertones too. And so we also have a new genre here. There's Anthony. Come on, come say hi.
Anthony.
He's like, absolutely not, absolutely not. We have the last new genre as we reopen is the hashtag won't he do it genre. And that was inspired by a lot of people who were coming into this space that have a church home. And we're like, well, the black church is pivotal to the black community. So where are books written by Christian authors? And so when we reopen now, we'll have a set of books, hashtag won't he do it, dedicated to books by Sarah Jakes Roberts, Priscilla Schreier, a prayer book, so that there's a space too for the community to share genres that they want to see.
I love it.
So that's what lives there on that bookcase. And just in the spirit of saying that there's something to look at and be intrigued by all around, even our end tables, you can see have shellacked poems on them. That one is The Negro Speaks of Rivers, and it's a poem you can look at. And as you walk around and you look at the tables, even when you go and put a drink down, you're sparked by a piece of literature.
I did not get that last time, so that's good.
And
Oh my God.
Look, and you can see another one right there. They're all over.
Oh,
so little bits of a piece of
okay.
paper that have either a
That
poem
is
to read or a
good.
quote to take in, etc. And so we love to honor, again, the other dope businesses that are thriving and are part of our storefront. You can see here we have Lady Miz on the map with her business blurb and also why she thinks Sadie's is more than a bookstore. And the goal is to tile this whole space with all of the dope diversity of businesses that are right here in our backyard. That if not for a space like this, you either have to hear from a friend or know on Instagram or have someone who already knew the product. So we become more than a bookstore because we're a hub for learning about Black estheticians, Black realtors, a Black doctor, a Black potato chip owner, a Black singer, right? All of that can be found in one place.
Love it. Oh my God. Which is,
yeah, right here. And so that chalkboard is not even doing it justice because that was from when we opened. And now almost a year later, we have at least 7 more businesses to add. So come back and we'll update that board because we need Lady Miz up there. We have to add Kia Simone Designs. We have to add Lollies. We have to add Melanin Intentions. So there's so many organizations to add to that list.
and I love this because what it does is, like, you know, somebody could come in here, they might want to know, how can I support other Black businesses?
Absolutely.
This is like the, what do you call it? The
The yellow
book.
pages.
Yes.
And not for nothing, we were thinking about starting something called the Melanin pages, right? For the local area.
That.
So it's like you go to what you're looking for and here's whoever's doing it, right?
Listen, I love it. I thought of, you know, I have all these thoughts, but
ideas.
sometimes I don't never get to it, right? But I thought about doing that too. I said, we need to make like a yellow page type of thing. Yes, a directory with all the owners so we could go there first before we go anywhere else.
Yes, because as quiet as it's kept, you know, not all of us can afford to go to the Chamber of Commerce and go through the traditional route to get our business plug. And even though it's organic to our culture to spread things by word of mouth, if we're really looking for the massive economic growth, we have to do it in more formal structured ways. So that maybe that's a collab that we'll work on.
Yes,
I want to pass Kai off because this may be heavy. But hold on one second. Thank you, community. Let me free myself up. So that formally ends the traditional or non-traditional, I should say, bookstore experience. And what we have...
Wait, before we just go to I'm sorry. The light, you don't need it? We're good on the light? You don't need the extra? Okay. All right, perfect. He said, let me do my job.
I love it. I know that look. I was like, ooh, I knew the answer too. I can't. So that's where the bookstore kind of halts, although you'll see books still living as we go through the rest of the space. But what we have here in the sideline area, although it's no backseat to the books, are, again, some of these collaborations living in the store. So we have a recently added all-Black coloring book that was created by a gentleman, and it's images through AI that he created digitally to color.
Yes. You know, I was in here, I was just looking at that.
Yes.
And I see that I was in here last time, and I said, I didn't look inside this book.
Dispelling the myth that
coloring,
dispelling the myth that coloring is just for kids, right? That could be part of your self-care, or you can give them images that look like people they actually see in life. We have Black-owned bookmarks, right? So even, bookmarks. So even as you're reading a book, the way that you tag the page you're left off at, it can look something like you. We have playing cards that honor Jean-Michel Basquiat, so that even your playing cards, you don't have to look at a white Jack, Queen, King. You can look at a Black one.
Black kings and queens, baby.
Hello. And our recent collab, which we're so hype about, Radical Dreams, another dope company that makes lapel pins and patches in the resemblance of James Baldwin, Maxine Waters, Michael Jordan, Colin Kaepernick. So back here is where a lot of our merch lives. And something that makes our merch unique is that every single shirt, like the ones we're rocking, were inspired by conversations with community members. For instance, city folk, right?
All right.
We came up here from the city, and anytime we wanted this type of cultural vibe for our family, we had to go back to the city. And a lot of times that we've been up here, city folk, oh, you're from there, right? It was said as an other comment, almost even derogatory. But we rock this city folk shirt to claim proudly our New York City roots. So if you're from 212-347-646-917, this is a shirt that you can wear up here in the Hudson Valley, like, yes, I'm city folk, and I'm proud of it. Another popular one is this one, Unapologetic Bookworm. There was a young person, because a lot of our programs actually either spotlight or work with the youth. And when she came in here for the first time, she had a bunch of books and was looking a little sad. And I said, well, what's wrong? And she said, my friends were like going in on me because I was walking around with books, but I like to read. I said, don't be sorry about liking books. Be a bookworm and be it proudly. So that shirt is named after her. And so every shirt is kind of inspired by a conversation that happened here in the store in this space.
Okay.
And so the proceeds of that go towards our annual scholarship. We have a scholarship that is about sharing your story. And what I love about the creation of the scholarship that my husband and I created, a lot of times when young people are going off to college, if that's their path, they have to write an essay or they have to be athletically inclined, right? But what if the best way I express myself is through song or writing a poem or a dance or creating a piece of artwork? You should be able to share your story in whatever medium feels most organic to you and still get the chance to earn money to go to college. And so we're in our third year now of having a set of young people submit things about their story in whatever platform they like. And it's been really encouraging that the community has been supporting apparel so that we can support them.
That's amazing. Everybody learned different. And it doesn't mean that this person, like, they try to label or say all these things. No, they just learn differently, even with autism. Like, I've worked with kids who have autism, and I've had a lot of training in that. So I do understand that the brain works perfectly fine. Different, but fine. Sometimes, and I'm not trying to be funny, even better. I worked with this one boy who memorized the whole book one time by looking at it once. And I would have him read, and then I would sit back, and then I said, he's not even looking at the book. And he memorized the whole book.
And so that's why we have to really dispel the myth that being different than the traditional means you're wrong or you're not welcome. And so that's what I love, not just about these shirts, but about this space, is that when you think about a bookstore, you're not used to seeing all these things, but that doesn't mean we're wrong. We're just breaking the barrier on what is right.
I love it.
So we've got shirts, we've got hats, we've got mugs, and this mug is a perfect segue to the whole left side of the store, which is an ode to like a cultural hub and an art museum, because this chain link mug, which is actually the apostrophe in our Sadie's logo, is an Adinkra symbol. And this chain link actually means unity and community and the strength when the two work together. Right? And so even in our logo, you'll see this symbol everywhere, on our recommendation cards, on our shirts, on the walls, because that's like the vibe we want to come and ooze out of this space. And so here's another example of the Adinkra symbol in our logo, in case you didn't catch it, and now you know the symbolism of it behind it. And so it gives us an opportunity to talk about Adinkra symbols, right? When we think about either hieroglyphics or even the Greeks and how they use symbols and their math, all of that predates and comes from the continent and what they were using to not only create their tribes, but a writing system. And as this map here shows, this is only a few of them. There's actually hundreds and hundreds of Adinkra symbols that were used by the Akan people. And so another way to kind of connect you to your roots that you may not learn in school, but definitely should be in your schema. We've got a themed area here with some African masks donated from community members. And then again, sprinkled throughout some apparel, like a tote bag. When they say banned, we say it's required. Another way to rock it with your shoulder. And then the one on this side says, I support independent thinkers, artists, and bookstores, right? Because sometimes being an independent thinker is not popular, but it certainly is something that adds value.
Absolutely.
So this whole side of the store, we've got paint by numbers of Nipsey Hussle. We have a local artist. His name is Malik Titus Bridges. He's a local community member that through a tragic event in his life, he was tapping into his artistic expression. So he converts this space into an art gallery. So that's another reason why we're more than a bookstore. He hangs these large sheets from the wall, covers all the books. This becomes a runway. He has a DJ, and it's like a whole experience.
What?
Yes.
Oh my God.
So he donated that one to the space to kind of memorialize his first time bringing that vision to a space. And so we honor that picture here. When we do sip and paints, it's never it's never just paint this flower and have some champagne. We call it canvas for the culture. So the last one we did, you either painted Nipsey Hussle or Lauryn Hill, and then we had their music playing here in the store, and you got to vibe to their favorite beverages, etc.
Wait, can we go on this wall real quick?
Yes.
Before we go
yes.
So tell us about this wall.
Yeah, so every inch of wall here has something on it, right? So this wall back here is an ode to Juneteenth. And another thing we're very passionate about, you know, it's so cool to have flavors of the month. In a few weeks, we'll have Hispanic Heritage Month. Then we'll have Women's History Month and Black History Month. But we subscribe here to Sadie's that those things should be 365. And so we have an ode to Juneteenth, although it's just recently become a federal holiday. The truth is, teaching about Juneteenth should happen well beyond just June 19th. So we have artwork about it. We have QR codes that connect to a way that you can purchase a commemorative coin, that you can learn about the legislation in our 50 states about what's happening with Juneteenth, books that we have here in the store if you want to know more than just you get the day off. And then one of the most important things is the grandmother of Juneteenth that was a huge advocate for it even getting the notoriety it has, Miss Opal Lee. And so this is kind of our ode, and no shame in it being in the back of the store. We put something powerful so people can come back here. So thank you for taking a minute to have us point this out. But this is the ode to Juneteenth, so to speak.
I love it. I love it. Oh my goodness.
More in the bookstore.
So much culture.
Yes, we're still working here on tiling some of my grandmother's vinyls. She was a huge fan of Betty Carter and Miles Davis and Thelonious Monk. So these are just little mini DIY projects that we're working on as we prepare for reopening. And even down to our wallpaper, which comes from a graffiti artist out of the city. We enlarged it and then we put that up ourselves, again, to put a little bit of that city swag for the Hudson Valley.
Yes,
you know, like you feel like you're back in the city.
I love that.
We're huge fans of Basquiat. He actually has his King Pleasure exhibit that's being extended through, I think, the end of October. So sometimes it's just a poster, and excuse the tree, but it's a poster to highlight, you know, exhibits that you may want to go see in the city that are highlighting and spotlighting the work that we have here.
Yes.
And this is also a new addition because, like we said over there with our hashtag hip to the hop genre, this is where we're going to be putting up an ode in this month to hip hop. And I know some people are probably looking at these vinyls like, wait a minute, you definitely don't got Biggie. You definitely don't have Pac. You definitely don't have Lil Wayne or whoever the other artists are. But the purpose, again, of a lot of the things in this space is to spark conversation, right?
Yes.
So who do you think is missing from the wall? Is there someone up there that shouldn't be there, that should be there? Why is Lauryn Hill at the top? Like, that's strategic. I mean, that's a little sub, because when that album came out, that album will forever be relevant.
Listen, all day.
And I'm not biased because she's a black woman with locks, but I'm just saying that album is the truth.
Listen, when you listen to her words and what she's saying, like, honestly, I kind of miss that. In music, right? And what people don't know, James Brown was one of the most sampled, he is the most sampled black man in music, but Lauryn Hill and Nina Simone are the top two for black women. Really?
So when you think about like the Jay-Z's, the Drakes, that they're sampling James Brown, Lauryn Hill, Nina Simone, like those are the artists that Kanye West also samples her. So it's another way to bridge connections between generations about music of the past and current music. And then this is kind of where our tour of the space actually ends. In formality, but we could certainly look at other parts of the store. And I call this like Sadie's Shrine, because no matter how we change up the seats for open mic or the artwork that changes or the books that come in and out, this is the part of the store that will always and forever be right here. And so the story of this setting is that this is Paula Whaley, and she was and still is my grandmother's best friend. And if you scan that QR code, you'll see her most recent interview with Oprah, where she's talking about how she came into being a very prominent sculptor in Baltimore. And so when my husband and I were thinking of opening this space, I reached out to her, and she shared to me that she had just finished doing a commissioned piece of work, and that my grandmother had been coming to her in her dreams, and she created a series of dolls, and one of them was called Aunt Sadie. And so she calls me and she's like, you got to come to Baltimore and check it out, and I'm going to gift you one for the space. And that's the one you see right here.
This one right here.
This right here. And it's called Aunt Sadie because that's what her children called my grandmother. And just by way of the tour, there's little things that you'll see she embedded in this sculpture. And she didn't know about this space, but look what's here on the end of this hand charm. Can you see what that is?
Not clearly. I mean, it looks like, what is that?
It's like an Adinkra symbol.
Hold on. Oh my God.
Like one from off of that sign.
Yes.
Now listen, she didn't know, we didn't even know how we were going to create this space. And when we were in here, that was on the hand. And that piece, I remember distinctly, was one of the last necklaces she wore, right? And so to have this piece of her here is almost like having a piece of Grandma Sadie's actual essence in the space. And so what makes it also so serendipitous is that August 2nd, I brought this back from Baltimore into the space. And I know you asked about what was the vision between my husband and I opening this space.
Yes.
And it actually was birthed, like I said, out of a very tumultuous professional and a time. And so when we get to talk about that later, you'll see how even this happening is really like, sometimes you got to lose yourself to find yourself. And sometimes you're taken off a path that you worked hard for, but it lands you right where you're supposed to be. And so that's kind of the theme that we want to share with people through the tour, is that it's okay to get derailed, because sometimes the derail is the rail,
That's right.
And as long as you're staying true to your purpose and you're allowed to discover new passions at any point in life, that's kind of like another reason why we're more than a bookstore. Then what lives in here encaged are books donated by authors that are signed over to Sadie. So I remember when I was talking to you about that colored cemetery and we talked about lynchings happening in Port Jervis. Here's a copy of the book written by Philip Dre that he signed to Sadie's, and you can see his signature here. And so all the books that are in here are donated by the author and signed to Sadie's, along with some things to just bring back memories.
Hey.
Hello, hot comb. Can you hear me now? My ears still have not recovered,
everything
right?
burning.
And I use it to talk to young people about the Crown Act, right? Which now makes discriminating against natural hair in the workplace illegal. Doesn't mean it still won't happen, but it makes it illegal. And so showing young people how natural hair was maintained, pressed, permed, curled, etc. back in the day.
And what's that in the middle?
Oh, this is a pick. Yes, you know, because the afro, you got to pick. It has to be symmetrical.
Yes.
So you got to get the picking, right? We have a copy of the Green Book. We have a copy of America, America. The mayor of Newburgh donated a copy of his book of poetry. And so, again, it's a way to just honor and show some sacredness to things that are given to the space that we don't want to just put out willy-nilly.
Yes, but wait, before you close that up, just real quick, let's give them a little history on the Green Book.
The Green Book, yes. So under our hashtag facts genre, you saw Driving While Black. So the Green Book was actually a motorist guide for people of color, created by people of color, so that you could learn about hotels, taverns, restaurants, roadhouses that were safe havens for people of color. Because as you were traveling through the U.S., there were some sunset laws, meaning if you were in a certain part of town at the wrong time, they could lynch you. They could kidnap you, they could do whatever. And so this was the guide, if you were traveling during that time, that would kind of help you navigate going to safe places. So we have a copy of that book thanks to a community member right here in our store.
Okay.
And even this drum donated by a community member. She had no siblings or children of her own, so she donated it. I know that's a throwback for many. I'm like,
Can I pick this up real quick?
Yes, please do. Mad that you have to put clothes in the
so
dryer.
I'm going to hold this. Why don't you tell them about this?
Does your daughter know? Listen, young people. You know what this is?
Do y'all know what this is?
To wash clothes in.
Oh, okay.
She got. No, I'm just
Did you
kidding.
know, Ian?
No, right? They didn't know. And some people use it as an instrument, but it primarily was a washboard. And you know, when our young people get mad about moving the clothes to the dryer, you were the dryer. You had to wring it out, line it up on a string, and even if you were in the city, on the fire escape. And I never forget having to wash my grandmother's undergarments or my mother's in the tub.
Yes.
And you had to put your back into it. So you didn't need Planet Fitness. You just washed the clothes. You understand?
Facts.
So again, things in here to just show young people and be nostalgic if you're an elder, but all things that are just hopefully inspire you to go home and be like, hey, I got it. To go home and be like, does anyone in our family have this? Or did you use that? Or do you have any heirloom that was your grandparents, and just spark conversation so we can learn to value the things that live and exist within our own homes?
Love it. And I definitely remember this.
Oh,
my
boy.
God.
Oh, boy.
Putting that in the tub too.
Yes, and I'm hoping
Scrubbing,
that's
trying to
just
get some stains
to
out.
get them out. And then you have to wash them again, a double wash.
Yes.
And so, not to say it again like a parrot, but that's a little bit about Sadie's and why we're trying to really push that we're your cozy cultural community rejuvenation center, right? That happens to have books and happens to have dope lapel pins and artifacts, but that you come here and you leave feeling a sense of either grounding or you've been sparked by something new to go have a conversation.
I love it. I love it. And you absolutely did that. Every time I come here, I learn something new.
Oh,
okay?
thank you.
Every time. Give us, first of all, who did these pictures?
An anonymous painter.
What's her name, though?
Yaa Yaa. Yaa Yaa is her name. All right, the cat's out the bag. The cat's out the bag. Mm-hmm.
Tell, what inspired you to do those?
So I grew up in the arts world, not in the visual arts world, but the performing arts world. And like I said, my husband and I were going through a professionally tumultuous time that resulted in our termination from our jobs like immediately and really not legally. Mm-hmm. And so part of what became cathartic, because at that point I was then a mother, so I couldn't just like go to the dance studio. But part of what became cathartic was to start to do visual art. And so I can remember distinctly when I started painting that one and what happened in my life, and when I started painting that one and this one. And so all of them are kind of an ode to, again, whatever brings you self-care or whatever helps you press through when life starts lifing, right? It could be art, it could be journaling, it could be yoga, it could be retail therapy, it could be seeing a therapist and you would never do that before, right? Whatever it is that can kind of help you get through those hard times. And that's kind of what I hope to share through these pieces of art, because I didn't go to coloring school. You know what I mean? Wow. And I didn't go to school and get an MBA to be a bookstore owner. So when I talk about this being really a passion project for us, because we're committed to service and making sure that not just our kids, but the community has a safe space where you can come in unapologetically, black, brown, white, Korean, or otherwise, and ask questions and talk about a book that if you try to do it in school, they'll tell you that's not allowed, right? Or to learn about a figure in history that's not in the books. Or if you really want to experience going to a black doctor because you feel like you're not being heard, we can recommend black doctors. So all of those things are a part of this hub and space. And again, the artwork will change from time to time, the positioning of the furniture, but what we want you to leave feeling is a sense of connection to something bigger than yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Would you say, like, when you start painting and drawing and stuff, is that like always a way for you to release, or is it also just fun to do, or do you find yourself going to that when you're feeling some type of way?
I don't see it as fun. I really do see it as a way of stress relief.
Okay.
You know,
so it's like your therapy.
Some people like to eat or be out and about. I usually just grab one of these canvases and I start painting it. And it's not by hand, it has like a stencil, but the coloring is what you get to choose. And it really is just a chance, again, to find a productive way to release when life be lifing. And shout out to that shirt, it's called the #reality tee, because a lot of people that come in this space, they're like, I come in here and I'm feeling down or heavy and I feel lifted, or I came to an open mic, or I came to a Sadie soiree and I'm like, I feel rejuvenated, right? And so when life starts lifing, we want people to feel like there's a space that they can come to where they can not forget their worries, but learn how to transcend them and kind of leave feeling motivated.
I love it. Oh my God, thank you so much.
Ladies, thank you. Thank you.
This place is amazing. Okay, I'm so happy that I walked through those doors.
Yes.
Okay?
And can I tell that story quick? Because I was in here dusting off books, and I only cracked the door because at the time our AC was not on and popping yet, because the AC man was coming, and you just happened to peek your head in and you were like, I know you're not, are you open? And I was like, well, we're not open, but I never turn away community. And you walked in just from spirit. We sparked conversation. I told you a little bit about the space, and look what's happened as a result of that. So sometimes just cracking your head through a peak door, it became reciprocal how we came to this moment. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. It was so meant to be.
But we officially open August 10th. Our hours of operation will be Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And you can check us out on social media or Instagram for the hours. We're starting off small and intimate because, again, we're not Barnes & Noble and Target. We want to feel cozy, and our staffing is cozy right now. And so we want to just help get the word out that those 3 days for now are when you can come and catch a vibe.
Okay. All right, and for people to follow you and keep up with everything that's going on here,
yes.
Where should they go?
So we're on Instagram at Sadie's_Books and Beverages.
Okay.
Same name on Facebook, and we're actually working with a local youth who's one of our interns to have her work on our TikTok, and then there's a new one called Threads. So bear with us, we're trying to get on those platforms, but right now we're on Facebook and Instagram.
Facebook and Instagram.
And we also have a website.
All right, and the website is?
BecauseItMatters247.com/Sadie's.
All right.
Say that fast 3 times. Oh my gosh. She's like, you couldn't just do Sadie's.com. It was taken. We tried. So yes, but we have QR codes to a lot of the things in the store, so you don't have to hold that in your head. Come with your phone, come without your phone. We'll make sure you leave with information so that you could take a piece of this with you.
Yes, I love that. So somebody walks through those doors and they can just get a book. How, besides purchasing a book, but you also have beverages and drinks and stuff like that too, right?
So you can come in, you can sit, you can have your own work to do. We can be a remote work location. If you want to do a community meeting, you can also rent the space. We have beverages in the back. We are housing Black and Bold, which is a Black-owned coffee bean. A percentage of their proceeds go towards HBCUs, so that's a huge reason why we love it. We'll be stocking Brooklyn Tea, which is a Black-owned tea company that is in the city. They'll be here. We have Lady Ms. potato chips. We have also a sea moss beverage creator. She's local. She's just starting her line. She'll also be selling it out of here also. So it's just a chance to just, even in your beverage, in your scents, your bookmarks, your shirts, that you can be supporting small Black-owned businesses.
I love that. I love that. So you got the Wi-Fi, everything.
Wi-Fi is
everything
here.
is here.
Wi-Fi is here. All you gotta do is walk through the door. We got
all
outlets.
ages.
All ages. We have outlets. We do sensory Saturdays because, again, we have a child on the spectrum. We bring out trampolines. We have bubbles. We push back the furniture. We have Play-Doh, so they have a sensory experience, because when you have a child on the spectrum in the family, oftentimes they're a recluse. You keep them home a lot because taking them out, either you get the stares or it's not a neurodiverse acceptance space.
Right.
And so Sadie's is a space every first Saturday, any day really, but especially first Saturdays, you can come in here. We got puzzles on the floor, bubbles, trampolines, and so you have a chance to be in your community and not just be confined to the house.
I love it. I love it.
Please come see for yourself why we're more than a bookstore. I might have left out 1 or 2 things. Lady Miss, don't kill me, but it's to keep you curious. So come down to 37 North Street.
There you go. 37 North Street in Middletown, New York. Come out, y'all. All right, y'all. So this is the part where I want people to get the backstory. I know we did touch a little bit on how Sadie's more than just a bookstore came about, right? Yes. But I want them to know a little bit more about you too, so that they know the owner and what you represent. So let's first start with you coming up here to Middletown, right?
Okay, yes.
Okay, let's start there.
So my husband and I, we've been working in education. We actually met at a P-Tech in Brooklyn. And so P-Tech is a 9 to 14 school model where young people have the chance to earn their associate's degree while they're in high school and then be first in line for a job with an industry partner like IBM. And even in the midst of doing that non-traditional model, a lot of the things that we both subscribe to is about doing service, right?
Okay.
And so as our family grew, we were seeking an opportunity to become homeowners. And if anybody is from the city, like to be a homeowner in the city now, you have to practically be Bill Gates' nephew, right? It just is a serious situation. So not only did we want to be homeowners, but we were very strategic about wanting to pick a community that didn't look completely opposite from what we knew. We wanted diversity. We also didn't want to be too far from the city, because when you get the itch to get back to Broadway Junction or go get peppers on Flatbush, like, you just want to be close to what you know. Right. And so Middletown actually landed as the place where we became first-time homeowners. And so we were strategic. Yes, thank you. And we both broke that generational curse in our families as being first-time homeowners. And so when we came up here and we purchased the home, we also wanted to look at the school district, right? right? Because since we are in education, we wanted to have a clear sense about what the schools look like, what the administrators, the teachers, and if it doesn't look like our kids, are they doing things that are progressive that still serve our kids? And so when we moved out here, it was about 9 years ago, and we've been here ever since. We chose this area for those reasons. So proximity to the city, a diverse community, and an opportunity to continue doing some service projects and things that we were passionate about. I got a job up in Dutchess first as a principal of a high school, and then my husband then got a job up here working for the Middletown School District and went through the pipeline of counselor, a guidance counselor, which is his background, and then he became an assistant principal. And then I started working in Newburgh as a director of math for a few years, and then we had our second child, and so then we were here, and I went on maternity leave, and then I got a job working in our home district. And so one of the goals also for us as a couple was to work in the school system that our children went to, right? To be an actual impact, not just for all the kids that look like our kids, but to be of service in the actual school district. And so when we talk about how we go from there to this space, without getting into too much details, but still being authentic to our journey, you know, one of the things that we're both passionate about is speaking truth to power, right? And a lot of times our young people are having experiences in schools with admin and authority that don't look like them, and they might find one trusted voice to confide in. And what do you do once you get that information? Do you just soak it in and go, oh, well, we hope you feel better? Or do you, when you're in tables and rooms when you can advocate for change to make the experience better, say something? And so part of our journey to coming to opening Sadie's is that we made the choice to speak truth to power about things that were going on about race and bully cultures in the school system. And it resulted in our termination. And so in the midst of being terminated abruptly, it's like, well, what do we do? When they close the door, you go through the window, right? Or as Shirley Chisholm says, you know, when they don't give you a seat at the table, you get your own table, right? And so Sadie's became a passion project for us to do the things that we were advocating for, like including more of BIPOC history in the curriculum, right? Creating spaces like My Brother's Keeper for Black males to have Black male mentors, right? And stop saying that it has nothing to do with color. It's not all that it's about, but they need to see someone because representation matters, right?
Absolutely.
So all of those components live in how this space was birthed.
I love that. I love that. And not loving the experience of how it had to happen, but I like that it got you to this place, because I think that, in my opinion, it was just like really meant to be, because now you can really do things the way you want to do them.
Yes,
you know
with some autonomy. And one of the elders in the community, shout out to the Rollins family, she's starting to author a book. And the title of her book really like encompasses what this experience was. Like, how do you go from pain to purpose, right? Because if everything is meant for your good, that means even the hiccup, even the derailment, even the termination, even the breakup, like all of those things connect to your journey and help you get to right where you're supposed to be.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just to backtrack a little bit off of what you just said, you know, when you said that it's not always about the color, right?
Yes.
What I find, and I'm thinking, was it, I forget her name. She was a white lady. I think Jane Elliott.
Oh, yeah. She speaks truth.
So, you know, one of the things that I like that she said is that when people say, I don't see color, if you say that, that means that you're trying to block out what you see, like it's something that bothers you when you see it. But it's okay.
Yes.
Like, you know, I don't, it's not, everything doesn't always have to be a negative thing when we say, oh, well, if you're describing someone, oh, the person that the black lady over there or the white lady, everyone's so afraid to say a certain word because things are so sensitive. But you should be able to speak freely as long as you're not being racist or being disrespectful, because if you learn to accept everyone for who they are, then those things wouldn't offend you at all. So, you know, when you talk about color, we should be able to speak about that freely. And what I love so much about your bookstore is that you bring all of that here. Like you said earlier, this is for everybody.
Yes.
So some people, anybody that come in here that feels offended or doesn't like the fact that you are teaching Black history and things that they don't want taught, that means that they have a lot of growing to do within themselves. And it's not a problem with you, but it's more of a problem with them. Okay, so.
And even our private event last night, you're my receipt, right? We had Koreans, Caucasians, Latinos, and there's an element in here that although it feels safe, the reality is we want you to get more comfortable with being uncomfortable. So if you look at that cemetery and you're like, ooh, like lean into that.
Right.
Because we had the same reaction. And it's not that my husband and I or anyone who works here in the space is the Encyclopedia Britannica of all things Black and brown. Some of these things I only learned in the last few months. But it's about paying forward what we learned, because information is meant to be shared and not owned. And, you know, back to Jane Elliott, that whole fear about saying that Black woman over there, you know, there's a YouTube clip of her where she's doing a seminar for a predominantly Caucasian audience. And she goes, well, you know, I'll put it to you this way. Raise your hand right now if you would want to be Black in this country. And the audience is looking at her. She said, no, raise your hand. If you say you don't think race matters, then would you trade places and be a Black person in America in this country? And she's like, why isn't anyone raising their hand? And they're all looking there because they know the message, right? And so, yes, we supersede race here and color, and we just want to promote growth of consciousness. But it's also grounded in the fact that, you know, as quiet as it's kept, sometimes it's our own people that do us the dirtiest, right? And when we even look at movies like The Woman King, right? And there were tribes of people, African kings, that were selling their own people into enslavement, right? So this is not an attack on any one person or thing, but it's also a sad part of our history as people of color. And that's why it's also bigger than color.
Yes, yes. Oh my God. Woo! That's what I'm talking about. I love it. I love it. Like, and you know, me coming in here, you saying that you learned some things just recently too. For me, again, me walking in here, it was a blessing, because I'm looking at things like, wow, I didn't know this. Oh, wow, I didn't know that. So I'm learning so much too. And I just want to bring people with me that I know need to learn. Sometimes people who don't want to read, especially little kids, it's because they might not have a connection to it. They might not, because I don't know if I told you, the first book that I ever really read
Sister Soldier,
was Sister Soldier. Now you got to remember how old I was to read that book. I was not engaging in a lot of stuff because I had no connection to it. I couldn't understand the language, you know. So I was talking to a young girl about this bookstore, young, beautiful Black girl, and I'm telling her mother, you gotta come to this bookstore. It's more than just a bookstore, okay? And it's so much to do, but it's a place where you can learn so much history, roots for us, you know what I mean? But not just for us, for everyone, but it's finally a place where I could go and say, I feel so comfortable, like I belong here. I don't have to walk in and feel like I don't belong. So the little girl said, no, I don't wanna go because I don't like reading. So I said, oh, well, why is that? She goes, well, all the books that I read are just for white people.
And that's what I was going to say. I was going to cut you off and say, like, respectfully, hopefully, like, it's not that she doesn't like reading. She doesn't like reading something that she doesn't see herself in.
There you go.
So, like, even with math, when kids say, I hate math, they don't hate math. They hate learning math from the perspective that it's old white European men that created everything. When we know, like, the light bulb, the traffic light, the typewriter, all these things, the World Wide Web were created by Black people. So they don't hate these subjects. They hate learning it in a way that shows that they have nothing to do with it.
Inflexible teachers that don't understand the learning style of children. And I'm so glad you brought that up. When she made that statement, and I started telling her, when you go in there, you're going to see books of girls who look like you, kids who look like you, who look like your mom, who look like us, and you're going to, she said, oh, wow, okay, maybe I do want to go. You understand? So the thing was, like you said, it wasn't about that she didn't like it. It was that she couldn't see herself in it. She couldn't connect with it. So you are giving that to us, which is why you can never go nowhere.
Oh, well, thank thank you. From your mouth to our longevity reality. And it's like, you know, one of the things I'll never forget that my mother used to always say that she heard Sadie say is that old cliche, if you want to hide something from black people, you know where you put it? In a book.
Okay.
Because we don't like to read. And it's not like the story you told that we don't like to read. We hate reading only the Steinbecks and the Shakespeares and the, you know what I mean? We want to read our stories and our people. And so that's another thing we're trying to dispel, because we have an audio bookstore for it. So even if you don't want to hold the book while you're driving, you can have your Kirk Franklin playlist and then switch over and listen to an audio book, right? So you can listen to a book and be a reader. You can watch half of it as a movie and still be a reader. So how do we just get people inspired to want to seek more information and grow their, what I call, shelf awareness?
Right, absolutely. I love that. So books in many different forms.
Many different forms.
Many different forms.
Just like melanin and our chocolate in many different forms.
Let them know.
Right?
Okay.
Right? Many different forms.
How was that transition though, coming from the city up here to that school? How did it feel?
Well, that goes back to our hashtag City Folk shirt, you know, because even being up here almost a decade, there's still a layer, which we wear with pride, that yes, we're not from here, but we chose to live here. But also the fact that we're still fighting against, you know, a perception, right? And so anytime someone new comes in, I mean, if you think about it in the sense of a friendship or a relationship or even a work setting, when that new person shows up at the job, you're kind of like, well, who's that? What are they doing, right? And so when you bring new energy, sometimes you have to give time for people to see what you're about. But then one thing that I can speak for us, when we interview or we go places and you see us out and about, we're the same people, right? So we're not like the type of people that if you go on a date and you know, okay, don't chew gum, don't burp in front of them, right? Or when you go on an interview, don't say this. We talk like this. We have our mannerisms like this. So we always present ourselves as we are. But like I like to say, they liked us enough to check the box. But when we shook the box, it was an issue, right? And so shaking the box is a part of adapting with the times, because even if you look at education, the classroom setting when we were growing up, you sat in rows, it was a wooden desk and a chalkboard, and you took notes quietly.
Right.
Now, to adapt to the times, there's smart boards, there's graphing calculators, you have flexible seating, you could do remote education.
Right.
So why is it that we're so resistant to adapting when it comes to conversations about race, but we can accept evolving technology, we can accept evolving definitions of gender roles, but if we start talking about evolving what racism can look like, yes, you might have a black administrator or black students in your school and we're not segregated, but does that mean that it's not racist? Does it mean that children can't have a racist experience sitting in a classroom setting? And so all of these things, when we think about adaptation and evolution, we just have to be open to seeing things outside of our narrow perspective. And that's the biggest way for us to, like Mr. Sussman said last night, bring about change.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I loved his speech last night as well too. Definitely needed to be heard, and not to say, because I know a lot of times we love saying, oh, well, you know, when somebody else say it, that's when it means something. It's not necessarily always the case. It's nice to see that someone who is not of color can understand and accept the truth and willing to speak on it. You know, because willing to speak on it too shows that that person is going against the grain of, you know, what is negatively impacting other people. So I thought that was amazing too.
And just a message for us that Sadie's really believes in also is that there's this misconception that as people of color in business, we have to be crabs in a barrel. Like only one black author and only one dope woman entrepreneur, right? But the truth is, anytime we're in a space, we should be sharing each other's names so that opportunities and we can grow, right? And so this is not a space where just because Kia is here with her bookmarks, if you own a black-owned bookmark, we want you here too, right? You are our inaugural potato chip owner, but if someone's coming in with a sour cream and onion and they're a black-owned, we want to highlight them too. So this is not a only one can shine, right? We all have our unique stories and our unique products, and we have to get out of that mentality that only one can do it. And only
because
one
you know
can be
what I say? There's Nike.
Oh,
there's Adidas. there's Pumas.
All these sneakers.
These other places that say, well, they got it, so I can't do it. And I love that because a lot of people do have that mentality. Like, oh, you're doing this, and now they think that it got to be like a beef between the two. Like, now you my op, right?
Yes,
you know what I'm saying? Like, hold up.
Not
like,
at all.
no, we could still build, and because I might be out of something, I could send them your way versus the same thing, and we could come together and build each other up. And I think that mindset needs to be put out there more. But I think when you surround yourself with people who are like that, it will eventually
manifest.
Yes,
it will
absolutely.
And just to do a plug and to show that we are as a business about that, the Black Library. So we are Orange County. They're in Sullivan County, and they're two young men that went through the Monticello Central School District, and they just opened. They had their grand opening, or it's coming up on the 12th. The Black Library. I haven't been there yet, but I went to their space. I met them. They've come here a few times to support and see what we're doing. And again, their vibe is similar, but they've got their own like personal touch that they're putting on a Black Library.
That's
and
beautiful.
So another opportunity to share another business that's doing something similar, because it doesn't have to be beef. It doesn't, and not that it ever was, but that's a mindset that lives in businesses of color that we really need to shift away from.
Amen. Amen. I love it. Woo! Yes,
I
yes,
know.
yes.
Thank you. And it's so refreshing to have someone that really wants to hear the story and it really wants to celebrate. I'm going to connect you with this, right? Because some people take the mindset, no, I had to go through the trenches to get all these networks and connections. So if you really want to be about it, put in that same energy.
Listen.
But my husband, one of his favorite quotes, success is measured by how many people you bring with you.
That's right.
So if you're going to look at me, and we're supposed to be a community, and you're going to say, no, go through what I went through to get where I went, then we're never going to elevate. I'm supposed to take what I went through and say, okay, you go further and avoid these pitfalls.
Yes, yes,
You know?
yes. You know, it's so funny you say that, because when I was looking to buy my first house, okay, at the time it was just me and my daughter, and I was struggling a lot to find something, because it's me by myself.
Yes.
And I was looking up here, and to make a long story short, I kept calling this number, and they were like, no, sorry, we can't help you. And I kept saying, no, this is the number that keep coming up when I search. And I said, let me tell you something. I'm going to call you tomorrow and the day after that. And the day, I'm not going to stop.
Keep that energy.
I'm going to keep calling you, because I know that you're supposed to. And guess what happened? The guy said, okay, fine. So that told me right there that they were trying to stop me for some reason, and not to make it a white or black thing. I could tell that the guy was white, but I say this to say this now. I say that to say this now. Yes. When I came up here and I was about to buy a house, there was a white lady who she ran the first time home buyers program. Okay. And she actually helped me and said, stop doing this, stop doing that, stop working with these people, they're not here to help you. She told me some of the people are racist, so you got to be careful. She was white, so she was very aware and did not want to hide anything. You see? And she told me everything that I needed to do. So I'm saying that also to say this part. Once I've learned, anybody that told me that they wanted to buy a house, or if I thought, I gave them the information. So I said, because I don't want you to go through what I went through. Yes, because it took me months. Months just to break through that one little thing. So then I was able to have that information, and I always pass it on. You know, I pass it on, and I think that's important, because you're right. It's what did Dr. Claude Anderson say? It's like a fist, right? That fist. We're way more powerful like this. But if you're just thinking of what the one finger, you might be able to push some things around. But when it gets heavy and it gets hard, you're going to need
the fist.
Okay?
The fist.
So I get it. I love it. And Sadie's Bookstore, more than just a bookstore, is that place. I thank you for bringing this here. I didn't even know, you know, you said you've been here a year. I didn't know, and that's why, again, it's important for us to speak, to say names. Anybody that I run into, I'm going to always tell them. And likewise, because I've been Lady Miz and Kia, Lolly's Handmade, Brooklyn Cry. I mean, you heard me last night trying to get it all in, but it really is, if I could just leave a soundbite, we subscribe to community being a verb. Right? You learn it in school as a noun, but it's about what you do. Otherwise, you just live in a neighborhood, right? So if you're not doing, sharing resources, leaning in, mentioning names, even when that person's not around, right? Because that's how we grow empowerment and we show true, authentic commitment to service. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, man. That is amazing. And it's a wrap. Yes,
Is that
yes,
what makes
yes.
it real?
So,
I don't know. He's not listening.
So listen,
Yes.
I do have a question.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay.
A real quick one. Seeing the education system now, when you look at it, especially places like Florida,
Oh my gosh.
where they taking out anything that really has
Anything.
to do with teaching Black history, being an educator, how does that feel to you?
It's not discouraging. If anything, it's motivating, right? Because a lot of times in education, especially when you're in service, there's a deep amount of self-care you have to do to go into every new school year, right? And so when I think about what they were trying to do, even with the College Board, they finally got African American Studies as an AP course. And then as soon as it came out in its most authentic way, connected to the 1619 Project, they made them resubmit it and took out all these parts. And they had to water it down for it to be accepted. They didn't want 1619 taught, like all these things were removed. And so as an educator, it's discouraging to see that it's still being denied, but it's motivating for our space to stay open. Because okay, what you deny and you don't want to see happen, if we could just get the word out of that Sadie's is here, you forget if the school doesn't teach you, we'll teach you, right? And so one of the things my family also subscribed to, you don't send your child and give all your power away and send them to school to get their education. You send them to school to get socialized. You educate them at home. And so if we can do our small part through a book, we have a children's book about the Tulsa Race Massacre. We have a children's book about being anti-racist. How could a book teaching babies not to be racist be banned, right? So how through literature can we teach these lessons young so that our kids go to the classroom respectfully challenging the teacher? Then we don't have to worry about if the system or the board, what they're banning and blocking, because the kids are going empowered with information from books from home. So, you know, it's idealistic, but it's a small way that we're trying to push the envelope, because it's a crime to see what some districts in Florida, even over here in local Hudson Valley areas, are doing to make sure these books don't come across our kids' tables. It's a crime. It's a crime.
Good question. Good question. Before we even, Soraya, do you have any questions? No, I mean to put you on the spot. I just want I mean, you might have a question that might be good that she might be able to answer.
What could I have a question for her. What could I do even more to appeal to the youth in this space? Because it's like I try small things and I ask my own kids, but you know, it'll, not that their voice doesn't matter, but I also would like to get other opinions.
He said,
He's
what?
like, what? He's like, you need a PlayStation? And I'm like, no PlayStation. Yeah.
That's not a bad idea either, to have to integrate some of the things that they like.
Right. Like in the store permanently, or maybe have like a night.
Yeah, like a game night.
Yeah.
Have them come in, maybe do something like that. Because if that draws them in.
Whatever gets them. And that's the thing. Like I was even telling some teachers who are visiting, take a class trip. Bring your class here.
Yeah.
Just get them here. You don't have to talk. I'm not going to put you in the spot. You don't have to like memorize black facts before you get here. Like just get them here. And then let me just put out 4 artifacts. Put the typewriter, the iron, and a washboard, and just spark a conversation, and then throw in a book, right? Have Gucci Mane's album playing. Be like, do you know he wrote a book? Nah, he ain't write no book. You capping. It's right here. Boosie has a book. Rakim has a book. Right? They would say that. And so it's like, how do we empower young people that all the things that they think have swag really are connected to ancestral culture?
That's right.
It's why we have that swag, that so much of it tries to get mass produced. And then they take it and they try to make it something else. Even the Louis Vuitton symbols and the Fendi symbols, you look at the history of those, they were grounded and sparked from Adinkra symbols, right?
That's
so
right.
It's like, we show our young people this and they don't even know they're craving their own history by supporting monetarily those other companies.
I say that even with Gucci. Like I know we talk about Gucci, but I'm like, yo, a lot of that, you look at the colors, the black and the green and all of that. The black. I'm like, yo, believe it. Look at what they got here. This is where it came from.
And they know, and that's why I tell young people a lot about young men want to be in athletics. I don't discourage that, but look at Carmelo. He wrote a memoir. Look at LeBron opening a school, right? Look at Kendrick Lamar, who just won a Pulitzer Prize as a rapper. Look at Snoop writing a cookbook. You know,
There's also Jaylen Brown.
Yes.
Boston,
Yes.
Starting Black Wall Street.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember you
I
telling me
want to,
about that.
I mean,
That's
it's
beautiful.
ambitious, but I want to take a bus and I want Sadie's to sponsor a trip to Tulsa, right? We're going to have we have the Tulsa children's book here, but also her memoir, The Last Living Survivor of Tulsa, her memoir comes out September 12th. Have it here in the space, right? So I just, it's enraging. And so what's a small way that we can say, well, here in Middletown, if you know about Sadie's, anything that's being denied and so you can come right in here and learn it, that's a small way that, right? They ban it and we require it.
We hope you enjoyed your time with From the Ground Up Productions. We'll see you next time. Be sure to add our channel to your Roku list and listen to us on all streaming platforms. From the ground up. From the ground up. There's only one way to go from here.